The year, the future. The location, Detroit. The movie, RobotCop 3. The hosts, it's Josh and Charles, because it's When Will It End, the movie podcast.
Hi. And
hi, Charles.
Can you hear the little voice, or is that just only in my audio?
What little voice?
So we're on Facebook Messenger, as we do now when we're podcasting in 2020. And I chose the inflatable balloon man, and I can hear a little man going, "Ooh, hee." So we're joined by Inflatable Balloon Man today.
And I want to welcome Inflatable Balloon Man to the cast. Inflatable Balloon Man, what's your story? Sing me your sorrows, brother man. The strong silent type. I admire that.
Hey,
today on the show,
it's like Greek salad all over again.
Hold on. Greek salad brought a lot to the table. And by that I mean I think it left a stain on your table.
Yeah, probably. We actually got a new table.
Was it because of Greek salad?
Yeah. My roommates were like, "What the fuck happened down here?" I was like, "We were podcasting." And like, no, I mean,
that's the saddest thing to admit.
Yeah.
Like, I'm moving out of my parents' house pretty soon, but whenever I have to be like, "Guys, I'm podcasting."
It sucks here too because, like, I mean, you've gotten a lot better. I'm gonna, this is not meant to be like a backhanded compliment or a humble brag or any of those double things. There he is. Josh has the strange grin thing. I don't even know what to call it.
I look like the crazy frog when I open my mouth. Ring ding 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 ring ding 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 ding.
You know who you look like? You look like I'd buy that for $1.
That's true. God, what a legend. What a legend.
Yeah, he makes it. He's in 3. They brought him back.
I'm incredibly proud of him. He did a great job.
I forgot what I was saying. Doesn't fucking matter.
You were saying, you're better than you used to be. You used to suck, and now it's a little better.
Well, I went out of my way to give you a backhanded jab. Oh yeah, because you're better at scheduling now. I also have to do the same thing, except because I don't live with my parents, so I could just be like, "Go to your fucking room, mom." I have to be like, "Hey guys, I really need to yell in the basement for an hour, so if you could just be quiet and not come down here, that would be great."
Well, you're hitting on an underrated part of living with your parents as an adult, which is bullying your parents.
Yeah.
Is awesome.
It sounds great. I am talking to my mom right now about moving back.
To Portland, Maine?
No, I'm sorry. I can't. This little balloon man is really distracting. Do you want one more comment from the balloon man before I change to something else?
Yeah, we're going to miss the balloon guy. He is really charming. For folks at home, his little arms are wrapped right around Charles's little head. It's great. He's having a blast over there.
Yeah, here I'm going
to
put my cans to my mic and see what happens.
Okay.
Say something, balloon man.
This is 2020. We're both in our 30s, and you're like beseeching a digital balloon man that no one can see to talk on our shitty movie podcast. Oh, that's horrifying. Stop it.
Okay.
Don't cut any of that out.
Well, at least we're having fun.
Thank goodness. And may I say, after last week's absolute nightmare, I was delighted by RoboCop 3.
So before I want to get a little, I mean, obviously we're in the midst of a strange crisis right now, and I guess many crises all at once. And I think last week's episode matched the mood of the week. Exhausted, right-wing pro-cop, just sort of having to sit there and watch it. And we met. We had a little phone conversation before this episode, being like, all right, this movie's probably going to be very bad. Let's see what we can do. Do we scrap it? Do we not talk about it? What are we going to do? And then I watched it, and I was like, Josh, I think this is actually a good movie. You have to watch this too. And so yeah, we're actually just going to legitimately talk about RoboCop 3 for an hour.
Which is great. Yeah, we were totally planning a Hobbs and Shaw style, I don't know. Last time we ranked the 10 best moments in Star Wars, which again, nothing but positive feedback from that. Everyone agrees with that list. And who knows what we would have come up with this time. But I was delighted that RoboCop 3 is weirdly celebratory in a way that I was not prepared for.
Yeah. And so that's not to say that everything is solved and the world we live in is still sucks. But I think in some way it does sort of match the mood of discovering that cities around this country are choosing to look at the budgets of their police departments and take money out of them. And that seems like, I don't know, I'm not even sure if that's a big win or a small win, but it's
a start.
It's joyful.
Well, but I'm thinking about in Seattle, protesters creating a temporary autonomous zone for 6 blocks of the city as the cops evacuate a precinct entirely. Like, there's wild shit happening, and cops are. There's activists talking about how it took years to get cops fired for shootings in decades past, and now there's cops getting fired and some even arrested. So again, the incremental agonizing progress this country makes out of its white supremacist origins and its violent police state and the unbelievable experience so many people in this country have, we're seeing that dialogue happen on a stage that has never happened before.
Yeah.
And it's incumbent on all of us to keep supporting our communities and listening to the people who have been most affected by that, remembering the names of Breonna Taylor and George Floyd and Tony McDade and the unbelievably long list of people who have been executed by that police state. But, I was feeling celebratory over the weekend for the first time, and that's been tempered since then by some other stuff. But look, RoboCop 3 features a black woman leading an insurrectionary movement against corporate Nazi police to stop gentrification and what seems like genocide, while a young woman teaches a robot cop how to explore his feelings and become a more fulfilled person.
Yeah.
And somehow this was written by Frank Miller?
So this is what if we were to base it on the last one, his first script for RoboCop 2 was unfilmable. And maybe the same thing happened here. Like, Frank Miller wrote a piece of shit script, Fred Decker, though you said they were friends. So it's like, it is very strange that, maybe we miss something, and maybe they see this as satirical as the first one was, where it's like, oh, look at this awful world where people hiding in... No, but it's like so overt. It can't be like a satire on protest and stuff.
No, I don't think it is. I think weirdly, like, this is a leftist populist movie. Because part of the thing about RoboCop 2 that was so fucking frustrating was at the end, they're like, well, OCP will go on to fight another day. We can't win every battle. And it's like, oh, that's fun for our hero to say, like, we're only human, that last line.
Yeah.
Which just feels like this, like, why even fight? Why even fight?
Yeah.
The house always wins. And
right.
This movie ends with OCP getting fucking blown the fuck up from the inside while RoboCop flies away with a child, and it's amazing.
Right. It's just like so joyously non-satirical. Like, I think we've seen this a few times in our investigative work as podcasters, franchise podcasters, where sequels end up aligning differently. Like, I say this is a direct sequel to 1, and you could take 2 out. And I think there's only like maybe even one thing that really happened between 1 and 3 that is in 3.
But also it's a tonal thing where we talked about how bright and obnoxious and unrelenting 2 was and how it feels like a different world. It feels like something that doesn't capture the grittiness of the first movie at all. And this movie, and reading about it, they shot it in Atlanta, and the abandoned buildings are real abandoned buildings that were going to be demolished to make way for the 96 Olympics.
Wow.
So this movie is like literally being shot in an actual community where actual corporate gentrification was literally reshaping that environment. So something about bringing it back to that very like lived in space gave it that sort of like sad hopefulness that the first movie had that I found really powerful in this one.
Yeah. So it's really nice to, even though it has the same writer, it feels as though 2 was not even a thought. They're like, well, let's just do a sequel to 1. It's the exact same characters. You got your fucking Johnson back, and let me say, Johnson's back. Like, and honestly, I didn't even miss what's his name? Bob
Morton or who?
No, who's the RoboCop from the first one?
Oh, Peter Weller, yeah.
Yeah, it's like, I don't even...
This was shot in 91, and he was shooting Naked Lunch, and he was like, I am not fucking walking away from Naked Lunch to make RoboCop 3. God bless him.
And that's smart, because as much praise as we're giving to this movie isn't great. This isn't
right.
like...
We settled on the same Letterboxd score pretty quickly, because it's like a competent, nice movie, and it was fun to watch. And that's kind of, I think, where it ends. It loses the lack of cynicism and the lack of complex political commentary makes this a very different experience from RoboCop. And yet compared to 2, it's just not fascist propaganda, which gives it a huge leg up.
Yeah. And also, honestly, right now, I don't mind just like the scene where all the cops throw their badges away. The scene where, RoboCop chooses to protect the church full of people. Like, these are just like moments that right now I'm happy to watch, where I like see cops not be good cops, but cops throw away the identity of the police so they can actually do the job of the police. And I think that's what, like, I was talking to my dad and other older people, like a couple, and like the idea of defunding the police is something that they don't understand, and they don't really, I mean, my dad is doing a great job this time around, which is really nice. Like, I remember the Ferguson, and he was just like clinging to this identity that he'd grown up with his entire life, and I think finally he's trying to get rid of that. But it is just like nice to see that you can have a space for law enforcement, but have them actually do a job that serves their community. And RoboCop 3 is like, it's goofy, it's over the top, it's very overt, but it's like the exact message that I want right now.
Right. You see cops give up protecting property for corporate overlords to serve a community and sacrifice something and show solidarity with, people. And what we see is this like faceless horde of people beating and murdering people. And yeah, I guess it's nice to watch a fun fairy tale shot in a very distant time about, imagine if cops prioritized that and that culture, everything about that culture that was fetishized for decades in American media and in the world we live in was actually true. And it wasn't just this like pretty transparent effort to maintain a status quo that benefits a certain elite and, keeps a certain group of people or groups of people in absolute misery. So yeah, that was kind of powerful to watch right now.
Yeah.
I was impressed. I was really impressed with that.
Like, I cheered by myself. I gasped by myself. I don't think I ever got to the crying point because it isn't terribly like, the emotional resonance is more just like that yes moments, not really like deep hurt moments or anything, because it doesn't quite capture it. But like, if I were seeing this in a movie theater with you and other people that were excited about the prospect of these protests actually doing something, I could see this being like one of the most fun viewing events to do right now, if we weren't all hiding in our homes from an invisible plague.
Yeah, it would be great if that wasn't going on.
Yeah.
That would be really nice. So I want to get into some of the cast of this movie is fucking insane. And I want to start with like maybe the less obvious place to start with. Stephen Root has been being Stephen Root for such a long time.
Yes.
I just finished watching Barry, where
Isn't
he
it
is
good?
phenomenal. It's very good.
It's very good.
The second season is remarkably good. But seeing Stephen Root in 1991 when this was shot,
Yeah.
just being fully Stephen Root is so funny.
Yeah.
Because I was born in 1990. So to watch Stephen Root just like know his lane and fucking score every time doing a sweaty, chubby, strange-looking man who's untrustworthy is just magnificent. And I loved his performance in this.
He's been rooting since you've been rooting. Does that make
Since I've been
sense?
tooting.
Yeah, tooting. There we go. Yeah, all right. He's been rooting since you've been tooting.
Yeah. I loved CCH Pounder as Bertha Washington was fucking awesome.
She was
the
great.
leader of the rebellion. As a Grateful Dead fan, I enjoyed thinking about her theme song being the legendary track Bertha. But she was phenomenal. She's the kind of person who's like, we've got to do this, everybody. And you're like, fuck yeah, we got to do it.
Yeah, she was great. Also, someone that's been Whitfording as long as you've been tooting.
Oh my God.
Is like, you have these people that I grew up watching. I didn't grow up, but like The West Wing was like a show that I really got into in my very early 20s, like late teens, early 20s. And it was, I don't know, it was like one of the first TV shows that I was like, oh yeah, this is great. I want to be like these assholes, just walking.
Well, his name was Josh. So I was raised in a house from elementary school where my adorable liberal boomer parents worshipped The West Wing. My dad is now rewatching it as his comfort show while I watch The Next Generation right now. But that show is definitely a poison on our culture. It is a terrible, terrible thing. There's actually a lot of podcasts that explore exactly how bad The West Wing is. But yes, I love Bradley Whitford as the wheeler and the dealer and the slime ball. And he's cranking it up to like a noxious 11 in this movie. He is just delicious.
And he gets to pair off of our boy Johnson, which is amazing. So like Johnson, we were saying he was really serious in 2. I don't really know that Frank Miller and the Kirsch really understood the role of a Johnson in a movie. Like Johnson is there to do a very specific thing. and they just didn't understand what a Johnson does. But Mr. Decker,
by the way, this is the great Felton Perry, we should say. We've been singing his praises for long enough. The great Felton Perry is phenomenal. He actually was on The West Wing, it turns out. He did 2 episodes. Interestingly, playing 2 different characters.
Weird. That's so funny.
How about that?
I feel like that would not happen anymore.
It's harder to pull off. He's in Dumb and Dumber. That's cool.
Cool. Who did he play?
In Dumb and Dumber, he plays, believe it or not, a detective.
What? Wow. What? This guy's got such great range. But so that watching Bradley Whitford and what was his name? Felton Perry, the great Felton Perry. They're just I don't know, just like I didn't feel that watching 2. I never felt like in the first one you sort of still get that, like, even though it's a gross bloody satire, the criminals have that camaraderie. There's like a nice connection between the people in their groups. And 2, just like I didn't feel connected to anything, and no one felt connected to anybody in the movie.
Exactly. And also, I guess Peter Weller both hated the script and was going through a breakup. So, like, he's just almost a non-entity in 2, which sucks.
Honestly, this dude is... I like the new guy almost better than Weller in 2, Robert John Burke.
Well, okay, you hit on something a minute ago I really want to dig into, because this occurred to me while watching it. When you watch the first movie, the thing about the first movie is that Boddicker and his gang are, like, really cool. They're awesome scumbums. They're like hanging out in warehouses, being evil, but they're like really good friends, and their camaraderie is really real, and it's like really enjoyable to watch them hang out and be pieces of shit together. And in this movie, brilliantly, we get to be a part of like a weird gang of scummy rebels living in the sewers. And it's a brilliant inversion of the first movie, where now we're the guys hanging out in the warehouse, and we're sympathizing with their campaign of destruction because it's righteous and noble. And I loved that, because you're right, in 2, there's like nothing to root for. It's just a bitter, ugly movie. And this is the opposite.
Yeah, because in 2, the only thing that we are given to root for is Cop. I must love Cop to love RoboCop 2, to like feel anything.
And not a pussy cop who has feelings and cares about people. A cool cop who just mows down rows and rows of people endlessly to like the cheers of the audience.
I think in Frank Miller's original script, like Lewis guns down every single child on that softball team.
Ugh. 2 sucks so bad. Well, while we're talking about the cast, we simply must talk about the most inspired casting in the movie. The wonderful Rip Torn is the new shitty CEO guy. Rip Torn is the best. The Larry David Show is one of the best The Larry Sanders Show. I confused my Jews there. I'm allowed to.
You're allowed.
I'm Jewish.
That's fine. I wasn't sure if there was like a Louis C.K. thing where Larry David had an original show called The Larry David Show that I somehow didn't know about.
Well, Curb is essentially that. But Rip Torn is fucking magical as Artie, the producer on the Larry Sanders Show. If you've never seen the series, it is one of the best in my top 5 TV shows, bar none. And he is, if you need someone to come in and serve up a steaming, delicious performance full of spit and spittle, he is just fantastic, and I loved him.
Yeah, he was... I think he's better than the old man in the first one. I mean, it's hard to compare because the first one's just like a perfect movie. It's genius. It's one of my favorites. But for like the fit, I think they both fit very well for what they're trying to do. And Rip Torn was a magical choice to like pull this. Every single person was perfect. I never felt like someone was miscast, and I felt like everyone was doing the exact business that I wanted them to be doing, and no one was overdoing anything.
Yeah, and I can't stress enough, this was a fun, engaging movie to watch. Like, it was a real pleasure. Frequently on this show, it feels like we're doing homework, and this was not the case. This was like comfort food in a lovely way. I wanted to double back for a minute, because I just thought of something. What this movie does that's so cool, and what I asked for in RoboCop 2 was for these movies to engage a lot more with RoboCop on a philosophical and spiritual level. And we get a lot of that in this movie, but there's 2 points that are really cool. The first is he reviews his prime directives at a crucial moment between choosing to follow his OCP rulers, so to speak, or defend the community and protect the public trust. And we see him ration out this morality, and it's done almost wordlessly, basically wordlessly, other than the text in his vision.
Yeah.
where we watch him make a decision. I mean, watch him judge the virtues of law enforcement around the community and the public. And I thought that was like a remarkably well done scene that could have been handled so poorly that it really invested in and gave a lot of rich meaning to.
Yeah, it's like what every police officer is also doing right now, except just choosing the wrong thing. Like, they must be going in their brain, uphold the law, protect the innocent. What's the third directive? There's 3 directives.
It's like protect the innocent, preserve the public trust, uphold the law, and then 4
and
is like don't fuck with the OCP.
Yeah.
Which, thank God, the little baby erases from his memory banks. And she's great. Good job, lady.
About her. But I think every cop either has so brainwashed themselves to not even care anymore, or must every day be like, oh, I'm not upholding the law. Oh, I'm not protecting the innocent. Oh, man, this sucks. Like, how can you, like, that's a perfect scene to show, like, why the cops at the end of the movie all throw away their badges. Like, this is not what you're paid to do. This is not the role of your job. You are intended to do better. And the fact that, like, all the subversive satire from the first one was literalized, and it somehow, like, it still works. Like, all the stuff that was used so well to point out all the problems, here it's like they're using the exact same thing to point out what we could be doing differently to solve these problems.
Yeah, that was beautiful. And then also, we get one of the most unbelievably weird moments I've ever seen in a movie when RoboCop explores his memory banks after the death of Lewis, which is a whole sequence we will talk about. There's a sequence, because you remember what I was asking for at the end of RoboCop was, I want to get into the feelings of this Frankenstein ghost man living in the robot body. This is so crazy. And in this movie, we get a dream sequence where he can't seem to distinguish between his wife and Lewis, who morph in and out of each other in a bizarre cybernetic landscape rushing by behind them as their faces morph in and out of each other. It was absolutely fucking delightful.
Yeah, and then also Lazarus in there. At first I was like, I don't know if this is really working. It's just like is combining all the women together. But no, I think it's like really nice that it's sort of like if the Avengers scene actually worked for me, where it's like, this is such a masculine movie. It's the other ones have been so violent. And here it's like, these women are very important in his life, and each in a very different way, but they're all basically teaching him how to be a better person. And it's not that, like, they're indistinguishable, like, they can be swapped in and out, like, it doesn't matter to him, but, like, each of these is like a new chapter where he's learning how to be a different person and a better person. And it was a really, like, especially for a movie like this, which is so silly and sort of by the numbers, to have this, like, almost drugged, like, this should have been in 2, like, all this fucking nuke.
Yeah.
Like, why wasn't there a weird tripped out scene in 2? And, like, you watching 3, you're just expecting a RoboCop flying around, and suddenly you get this, like, weird, almost psychedelic, but, like, computer psychedelic shit. It was really great.
Well, 2, like, goes out of its way to talk about how having sentimentality is for, like, cowards and liberals or whatever. And this movie is the opposite, where he marinades in the women who have shaped his life, and a woman leads him to that realization. And
yeah,
there's something weirdly revolutionary about RoboCop 3 having that level of emotional complexity around this guy who, in 2, is just written to be a robot man who murders people, you know?
Yeah.
And this feels like, is there a 4th one? Are we doing a 4th one?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, that's the plan right now, is to do the reboot / remake of 1.
Well, there's also the animated series, which someone pointed out to me.
Yeah,
which we're not watching the entire animated series.
There's been like 5 TV shows.
Oh,
no,
God.
I don't think
we can't do that.
No.
That's insane.
I think before we get too more loose and just sort of wandering around, I think it might benefit our conversation and the listener to have like a very brief plot summary, just so that, like, I bet people are like thought the same thing we did. Like, I'm not gonna, especially right now, watch another pro-cop fascist, tug job of a film. But so they probably didn't watch it, and I think it might be good to sort of hit the beats and then get back to Lewis and RoboCop.
Because what if I told you about the splatterpunks?
Yeah, exactly. Wow, what? Tell me more.
Are you going to offer Are you going to offer context? Traditionally, the realm in which you flail the most.
Yeah, I'm going to do that. All right. So here's
everyone,
what.
Sit down, get comfortable.
Back, get some cake, and I don't know what.
Some cake?
Yeah, I don't know. Something that you could eat for a couple minutes and have.
Everyone
fun.
Go to Mama's cupboard, pick up the cake dish, get a big slice of moist pound cake,
If
Go
you're
back
driving
to
to
your
work,
comforter.
fucking turn around. Go back to Mama's cupboard.
Get a slice of that moist pound cake. Sit down. Have a slice.
All right. So this takes place potential. It's like doesn't even really mention two, but this movie just starts up and as always, we're on the verge of Delta City. And I do like that Delta City is never built and it's been in every movie, just like this constantly never going to happen thing to
Right.
all it is just like a fake impetus for capitalists to run around and do bullshit.
Right. This company has been trying to build a new Detroit over old Detroit for some time now, and it is a real pain in the ass, it seems like.
Yeah. But OCP is even more Nazi looking than before under the direct leadership of Paul McDaggett, played by John Castle, who is a very like Nazi-ish looking fellow.
Well, he doesn't lead the company. He leads the urban rehabilitators, the Nazi shock force that's been brought in to clear out Cadillac Heights, which is a great name for anything.
It is good. I'm sorry. Yes, that's of course John Castle's the like second in command to Rip Torn, who is the CEO. But yes, so he's like leading the on the ground assault of the places that he's trying to kick people out of. And the beginning's great. You're introduced to the kid and her parents. The kid who is, I forget her name even, but she's
Nico,
thanks. So we'll talk about her later as well because she's really cool. But so she's disrupted from her home as her home is knocked down while they're still living there, and she joins up with a group of rebellion that is basically like Star Wars-y in that there's a bunch of people on the ground who are kicked out of their homes and they're fighting back against this oppressive regime.
Well, hold on. You missed the great moment where her father goes, "Don't worry, you're safe here at home," while she watches the news. And then a wrecking ball smashes directly into the room that they're in. It is hysterical. It's so good.
It is really great. And I'm sorry, I'm feeling very pressured right now. I've never done this really that well before, so I appreciate
You're doing
you
great.
coming in.
I'm just
and helping
jumping in
me
for a
out.
little bit of salt and pepper.
Yeah. I also have very bad memory, and I watched this a couple days ago. So, yes, please continue to help me out. Meanwhile, the police are not on strike. So this is sort of where I feel like this is ignoring two, because it almost like calls it out. There's a line where the sergeant's just like, he's on the phone. He's like, "No, we're not on strike." And then he hangs up, and it's like, all right, great. They're just like getting rid of that whole thing. And they're not really, they're like sort of working for OCP. OCP has a room in the police department where they're running this like urban, what'd you call it? The urban...
They're the urban rehabilitators. And May, just again, we have to shout out Robert Dupuis, the late Robert Dupuis who plays Sarge.
Oh.
Really just, man, just doing yeoman's work in this series. What a delightful, delightful performance. Across all three movies, he's the most consistent presence. He is wonderful.
Yeah, I think he really is, because both Johnson and Lewis really sort of became bad and boring in two, but I think he really stuck with it and did his best. And yeah, he's been like, they're the only three, right, that were in all three movies?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, and like he's just, is really fun to have him there and just be like a constant force in this series. So the police they're sort of doing their own thing. They're like working alongside OCP, and the gang of, well, not gang, I won't call them a gang because they're great. Well, I mean, a gang just in terms of a group of people working together, but the resistance fighters blow up a police station and steal some shit, and then they get chased by a bunch of cops, and we are introduced to the new RoboCop.
But hold on, quickly, there's an amazing moment. When Bertha and company are raiding the complex, and it's the kind of thing that is, you just got to nail this kind of moment where she sees the jetpack and she goes, "Get that," and then someone goes, "What is it?" She goes, "I don't know, but it looks expensive."
Yeah,
and she just nails that. And like, I feel like in two, none of the banter works. Like two is just dry and flat and sour, and this like everyone is delicious in this.
Fucking, there's a scene where like a loser with a giant gun invades a cop hangout, which should have just been a throwaway scene, but Jeff Garlin is the dude behind the counter, and like he's great. It's just like everyone, I don't know, Decker must have just been like, I don't know, was he like just a cool guy in Hollywood at the time? He just like knew all these cool, funny people. It's like the casting is too good to have just been a coincidence. It really was great.
Okay, well, so he did Night of the Creeps and the Monster Squad, and Shane Black, who wrote the Monster Squad, is in RoboCop 3, which is very funny.
Yeah.
I don't know. Decker definitely brings this like fun, punchy, classic Hollywood sensibility to all the comedy beats that work really well.
Yeah.
So I don't know. He also punched up Titan AE and Lethal Weapon 4. He wrote some Star Trek Enterprise. Like, he's done all kinds of stuff. It just seems like he's a classic Hollywood guy who understands how to make a fun, juicy movie.
Yeah. Night of the Creeps is pretty fun. It's not like one of my favorite of that style of horror movie, but it's definitely fun. Monster Squad's okay. Again, not like my kind of thing, but for what it's doing.
He did 4 episodes of Tales from the Crypt, and I believe CCH Pounder and Stephen Root and some of the other actors were people he had worked with on Tales from the Crypt.
Gotcha. And I was going to say, I don't know if we'd mentioned Bertha's, the name of the actor who plays Bertha, but CCH Pounder is...
I have said that repeatedly, if you were fucking listening to me.
Okay. I'm really desperately trying to remember the plot of this movie.
You piece of shit. You could just read it.
CCH... No, I'm doing it from memory. I'm not going to cheat. CCH Pounder.
It's not cheating to read reference points.
Okay. I'm going to do it from memory, though. I'm going to do it, and you're going to help me. Okay?
All right, continue.
So Lewis is, while trying to catch Bertha and the gang, they get into a car accident and get stranded in the middle of...
the Splatterpunks. But hold on. How do we see Lewis...
Jesus.
They introduce Lewis in such a fucking amazing way. The guy goes to rob the donut store. Jeff Garlin has his Jeff Garlin moment. And then all the cops they get a call, and it's all cops in the store, and they all put their guns on the guy. And it's funny.
It is funny.
Cops are fucking armored people carrying lethal weapons, and it's great.
They're just eating sugar donuts all day long, just savagely waiting to beat somebody up.
It's sick. And they're like, oh, here's this call. Who's going to take it? I don't want to take it. Lewis. And the camera takes us through the donut shop all the way to the back where someone's reading a newspaper, and she pops the newspaper down and blows a big bubble of gum like in the first movie, and it's Lewis. And this is the kind of third installment shit where I'm like, yes. Like, load the frosting up. When you bring in Lewis, when we finally see RoboCop, he is introduced brilliantly. But okay, I loved Lewis's intro.
Yeah, me too. And it's like, yes, just more of that. Just I'm back. It felt like I was back at some strange, not home, but like you were back at your childhood home as an adult, and you're like, oh yeah, this place. I feel like very comfortable here. She's really good. I can't wait to talk about her death scene. That scene is great.
Well, let's get there, buddy.
Yeah.
So the Splatterpunks, one of the best parts. I love any movie that depicts street punks in an amusing way, and this is just fantastic punk material.
So the punks come out, they sort of wait for the police to run out of ammunition, and they slowly saunter up to murder these cops. And then, meanwhile, there's this piece of shit male chauvinist who's yelling at Lewis, being like, why'd you bring this broad along? She can't drive for shit. And she's like, shut the fuck up, buddy, or I'll make you eat your stupid tie. And meanwhile, they're all cowering in fear. What's going to happen? Fucking RoboCop drives to the top of a parking garage and drives his car off of the parking garage and just crashes down to the ground.
Well, hold on. You once again missed a huge chunk here. RoboCop, the van full of rebels is running away from the police station, and they manage to outsmart all of the other cars by manipulating the streetlights. It's very fun until only one car is left behind them. And Nico, the little girl, goes, "And is it him? And do you think it's him?" And it's cool because earlier in the movie we've seen that she has a RoboCop action figure, which is sort of the first acknowledgement in this world that people are already turning him into this like god figure. Well, Frank Miller just calls him the Christ is stripped in 2, which is one of the worst lines in the entire series.
I thought you made that up. I didn't even remember it. It's such a I don't even know what it means. The Christ is stripped, but I sort of like it. It sounds like the name of an album for one of your releases.
No, I would never talk about Christ on a limb. Well, actually, there's a Limsman song called White Christ, which is all about like the maddening ahistoric like supremacy of claiming Christ was white, which is psychotic.
It is.
But no,
yes. Well, I mean, it's not really psychotic in that it's just like a magic fairy tale for white people now, so they might as well just like do whatever they want to him.
I guess so.
But the belief like is psychotic.
Right. He's a Mesopotamian guy born in Israel. It's not like going to look like fucking Jim Caviezel. But anyway, so the young girl who's finding her new home, etc., they realize that it's RoboCop chasing them, and it's this moment, and he chooses to betray his orders, which that galvanizes that whole other part where he gets reprogrammed. But he chooses to give up on that chase to go save his friends from the Splatterpunks, who he mows down like a goddamn entire lawn full of ruthless dandelions. He just
Because what's cool is now RoboCop, even though it's like certainly the least violent of the three, and I don't even know how many, like RoboCop doesn't really kill many people, which I sort of liked.
Well, this was like this was the one they made after the animated series, and this was more like a movie for kids.
And
which honestly, given the ugliness of 2, I was fine with that.
I really like that he's not killing people anymore. It's like the opposite of a Terminator 2, where it's just unbelievable and dumb. Where here it's like, no, this is all about police being servants to the community. And he is going to find ways to solve problems that isn't just blasting holes into people's chests.
Right. And then also, in Terminator 2, by sanding off all the edges of Terminator, you'll kind of lose the essence of the character and get like essentially a walking, toy. And this is the opposite. This really dives into what makes him work. So I would differentiate it along those lines as well. It's more kid-friendly objectively, but emotionally it has nuance to it that Terminator 2 thinks having him say sayonara is like a big breakthrough, which I still fucking hate.
Also, Terminator 2 is a misogynist piece of shit, where RoboCop 3 has four badass, strong, capable, heartfelt women characters that are like all the men in this movie are well, actually not all. There's some really cool men in this movie too. It's like, but the 4 like women characters, they're the ones that I thought about the most after watching it, from the kid hacker, who was way better than the Jurassic Park kid hacker, to Bertha, to Lewis, to Dr. Lazarus.
Played by the great Jill Hennessy, who is the subject of Bradley Whitford's like absolutely Olympic level sexual harassment.
Yeah.
The man he's in the paint on this one. He is really battling it out.
Yeah. And it's uncomfortable, but done in a way that's very intentional, so you know what it's doing. And she always has the last word and the upper hand until he blows his brains out later in the movie. So
right, because he's just a sad corporate piece of shit, and she's a cool person with values.
Yeah. So they all escape. I don't even remember how. I'm sort of losing it. But I'm gonna. Maybe everyone should get a second piece of cake.
This is very sweet. That like you're sort of like a kid tiring yourself out.
Yeah, I'm ready for bed, Josh.
You're like, oh geez, oh no. Well, we haven't even talked about the Kanemitsu Corporation and their Otomo.
Well, that's what I was getting to.
Okay.
And so we haven't even mentioned Mako yet. Mako's in this movie. Is that how you pronounce his name? Mako?
Mako?
Yeah.
Who's Mako?
He's the older Japanese business.
Oh, the CEO.
Owner. Yeah, the CEO of the Japanese one. He's like fucking legend, man.
Yeah.
He's been.
I don't know much about him.
I mean, you do know that he was the voice of Splinter in TMNT.
Oh my God! So he's a return visitor to the realm of our wonderful podcast.
He was the voice of Uncle Iroh on Avatar: The Last Airbender, and speaking of The West Wing, he played Dr. Yosh Takahashi on The West Wing.
Well, fantastic! I'm happy that The West Wing is ultimately the ship that sails forward from RoboCop 3.
But man, if you don't know Mako, he's awesome. I'm sorry if I don't know how to pronounce his name, but he has like almost 200 acting credits. He's been in all sorts of shit. He's very cool, and it was really fun to see him in this movie as well. It's like a really nice get.
He's got a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, the ultimate American honor.
Oh, wow. Great. So wait, I sort of forget. Can you remind me how RoboCop sort of parts ways with the... Oh, no, that's right. He protects them. They go back to the precinct, and he gets his mind erased, correct?
Well, no.
But I know
Whitford
not.
tells Dr. Lazarus to do it, but she doesn't do it.
Yes.
And him, with the memory of Nico seeing the young girl crawl into the church, he goes back to find her because that's the emotion of being RoboCop, man. He can't... that is the human part of him. He wants to protect the innocent, and Nico to him is the innocent.
It's
so he goes
so
to the
much
church.
better than 2. 2 is like,
oh my God.
He sees Hobb, the boy drug dealer, and like has a strange flashback to the point where I'm like, wait, is Hobb his son? Because they pair that scene.
I never once thought that, but I know.
They pair that scene like beat against beat for him seeing his wife. Like the very next scene is him is RoboCop stalking his wife. So I was like, wait, maybe he starts stalking.
No, it just reminded him of his son. It's not that complicated.
I know it's not complicated,
this.
but it's not well done because I'm like, wait, maybe he saw his son and started stalking his wife.
You're overthinking this. It's just a bad movie.
I'm allowed to overthink it because they gave me these thoughts. Frank Miller gave me this thought.
Wow.
The Kirsch built this for me. But no, that's really cool that he goes in, like in another movie there probably would have seen where he, like in the second one where he has his memory like erased, and half the movie would have been RoboCop trying to figure out who he is again. But no, this is like a fucking awesome scientist being like, no, I don't want to strip this thing. We made him human so that he would be human. We don't want robot cops.
There's that great moment where Bradley Whitford playing Fleck, I believe is his name, which is excellent naming. You know, he's like, he disobeyed orders. You know, that's against his programming. And then she's like, no, he made a decision. He made a choice. That's what makes RoboCop RoboCop. And she understands that.
Yeah.
And he's not just a robot. And I think it's
right.
Good writing for a movie that, again, it's RoboCop 3. We expected nothing from this. Okay.
We expected much worse than nothing. We expected to have to sit through another 90 minutes of just like watching cops be lauded for killing people.
Right. So, anyways, to drag us through this recap, at the church, that's where the urban rehabilitation squad shows up, and they're like, RoboCop, get the fuck out of the way. We got to take care of these people. And RoboCop makes a decision. He's like, Lewis, let's kill these motherfuckers. And she's like, fuck yeah, bro.
Yeah.
She gets shot
immediately.
There's this unbelievable scene. The scene that we're probably going to talk for like 8 hours about just this one sequence, but Lewis is shot. RoboCop picks up her body and walks down the aisles of the church through the pews, and it's a tracking shot from the side, so it feels like an old, what are the movies with like the rotating cylinder?
Not an oscilloscope, but I know, like the one with the horse, right?
Right.
Where you like see the horse run, and you just put it in a thing and you spin it.
Exactly. So it's this weird, it's like you know, this like really powerful. It felt like we were watching like a 60s Czechoslovakian drama or something for a minute. It was this like
lighting
really
is incredible.
Oh my God. And like he lays Lewis down and watches her die and records her final words. And it is an unbelievably emotional moment.
Yeah, it really, and this is where I gasped because they even set it up. There's like, she's getting in the car and someone says, hey, Lewis, you want a vest? And she's like, no, I'm off duty, even though I'm getting into a police car going to like probably a place where I could die. Nah. But I was like, no, there's no way they're going to kill Lewis. Pop, pop, pop. 3 in the chest. She's out. And I was just like, what the fuck? This movie surprised me, which is, I mean, I wasn't expecting to get surprised at all. And it was very out of character for a third in a RoboCop series, I would say. Like, this is not what I was expecting at all.
No, I didn't think Lewis would die at all. I wasn't expecting this, like, reverential, vaguely Christian sequence of, like, sacrifice and death and morality. And, again, it felt like a Bergman movie for a minute. Like, It was bizarre. Anyways, there's so much more plot to get through.
Yeah, but I'll blitz through it because we're gonna just get through the rest of this. So basically, RoboCop joins the rebels. What's his name? Toots. What's his name?
Kuntz.
Yeah,
Stephen Root as Kuntz, the traitor man.
He's a traitor and he sells them out. The fucking girl's a cool ass hacker, and she fixes up RoboCop and she gets rid of his.
She deletes the fourth directive.
She gets rid of the fourth directive.
Yet another one of my favorite tropes in these movies where we see RoboCop in and out of consciousness while people work on his body, which is really wonderful.
Yeah, it's a good throwback.
The great Daniel von Bargen is in this, who is a wonderful character actor. You may know him from Malcolm in the Middle. You may know him from Super Troopers. He's in all kinds of stuff, playing like a tough, mean guy frequently, and he's one of the good guys in this. And I loved his performance in this.
Yeah.
He's wonderful.
And if you did watch this, you'll notice that we haven't really talked about the Japanese business side of things. And I want to talk about it now because I think that was definitely like I don't know how I felt about it. It's like the music choices were definitely not great.
Orientalist and racist. Yeah.
Yeah, some racist shit. And even the story itself is like, I just don't think it needed to be in there, as though like we now need to blame like foreign Japanese investments on our bullshit country. I wasn't quite sure what the point of having OCP have to like have this like side plot of being taken over by a Japanese company. I
agree that that's a thinly developed and relatively unrewarding sector of the movie. And in general, I would say Otomo, the android who fights RoboCop, was a big disappointment. I thought there'd be a cooler fight scene, and we did not get that. I guess Fred Decker in the trivia says that he wishes he'd been able to do more with that, and it is a real missed opportunity. I thought there'd be like a cool sword fight, and there kind of isn't. a
No.
sword fight, which was inexplicable.
It's really bad. It's like, it's worse than Godzilla shit, where it's like those are the epitome of just men in giant suits swinging their arms at each other. This is, if you want to see RoboCop fall down a lot, then this is the best movie for you.
He
Because,
does fall.
boy-
It's the most common problem with RoboCop. He
Yes.
can't really get up, which is you'd think they would have thought to address at some point. Maybe
I
like a
mean-
little jet booster, go pop him up.
So yeah, he basically this very intimidating when fighting a man. Like he can do flips, he can punch and cut you wide open with a sword. But when fighting RoboCop, he decides to mostly just sort of walk around in a circle until he kicks RoboCop down. But then RoboCop will eventually get up and do something to his face. But man, the weird smile that they got on that mask when he was like, he got his jaw messed up and then he got his face ripped up. It was a little creepy.
Right. There's a really cool part where one of the Otomos has like a shattered, broken face and is joined by a second Otomo. So there's two Otomos fighting RoboCop.
That was a cool
Visually,
scene.
it was cool. The idea
Yeah.
was cool. Again, like the delivery is lacking. But and then to make a very long story short, RoboCop saves the day.
Yeah, I mean, so we get to the scene where OCP's like, we need 50 cops out in our front lines leading the charge. And there's a beautiful scene. If you're not going to watch this movie, you should just watch this scene right now because it will like help you understand what defunding the police means and make you feel good about police actually doing work. And like I don't think we should get rid of police officers. They should just change their job to be helpful. And this is a great moment where the OCP's like, get your fucking guns and lead this charge. And Sergeant what's his name? Sergeant.
They just call him Sarge. You know,
Yeah.
just let's stick with Sergeant Warren Reed. Though
Reed.
I don't think for the life of me they ever really say
Yeah, doesn't
Reed.
matter.
I don't think that ever happens.
But the
Nor
sergeant's
should
like,
it.
you know what? I don't want to do that. And he's like, you know what? If you don't do it, we're going to fire you and you have a home to go back to. And he's like, yeah, you know what? Whoop, take my badge off, throw it on the ground. I do have to go back to my home and I have to look my family in the face. And I can't do that by murdering innocent people. So I quit. And then every other cop's like, yeah, I quit too. And all the fucking cops quit. And it was great. And
then on the news team, the woman on the news team who we've
Yes!
seen maybe in all three movies, she also is like, you know, I refuse to just like regurgitate propaganda. This fucking sucks. I quit too. You see people taking direct action, taking risks, turning down the profits of a world that, you know, rewards them for doing bad things. And they follow their hearts and a good thing happens. And the company's malfeasance causes its downfall. And you know, there's communal action against a horrible system that is effective. And I don't know, the first movie is like deliberately obtuse in its messaging, which makes part of its magic. The second movie is just straight trash. And in this movie, you know, it's a simplistic movie. You know, it's not a complicated movie, but I was really impressed that they showed that like it's possible to walk away from comforts and things that are being, you know, you can reject orders to do the right thing. And they did that in a way that I thought had nuance and subtlety to it that it definitely didn't need. And I was impressed by it.
Yeah. No, I'm glad you brought up the scene with the newscaster where she like reads the story of how the police, or I guess it was like RoboCop's a terrorist or something. And like, you're just like, the people that are actually good or bad. She just like, is like, wait, this is fucking bullshit. Are you expecting me to read this? And then just cuts to the man just being like, and it's like, we are experiencing technical difficulties. We'll be back.
Well, no, also, we're talking about this right now at a time where there's been such great reporting on how consistently police lie about what happens in these situations. Read the official description of George Floyd's death is so fucking appalling and
so
crazy.
fucked.
I believe they say he appeared to have medical complications while in custody.
Yeah.
That's their description of someone put a fucking knee on his goddamn neck for almost 10 minutes.
Due to like health conditions, and I think they even tried to like blame it on drug use.
Well, no, that was after the fact. That was in the initial report.
Okay, yeah.
And then, you know, you have the in Buffalo saying that the fucking 75-year-old Catholic pacifist tripped
and fell.
How many million people have seen that video? Probably close to 100 at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all of these institutions just exist to perpetuate themselves. The American empire, capitalism, law enforcement, the entire thing has to be an excuse to continue doing it. And anything that deviates from that narrative is considered, you know, subversive. And, you know, the craziest thing watching this movie is that they talk about augmenting forces. And I'm actually I broke a story in Berkshire County about, how the National Guard and how state troopers are using the same word, augment, to talk about building up their presence in rural Massachusetts during this time of unrest. And the parallel between OCP talking, like using these, deliberately dense corporate terminology to talk about, a surge of armed troops to clear out Cadillac Heights. I don't know. The resonance is uncanny right now.
Yeah, it's really intense and in a good way. It's like this is like a movie that I would put on. I mean, certainly after a lot of like Black Voices and other films that are like much more important. But like this is a fun movie that you can put on right now if you're feeling like you just want a feel-good movie to get through the day that like really matches the vibe of what the protests are all about.
Well, yeah, but I would say, CCH Pandora's Bertha, that's a charismatic, strong black woman leading a rebel gang. Nico is a biracial child of a family, and I like that RoboCop.
That's true.
It tries to incorporate the sense of the future as being a time where it's not just traditional role models being carried out by, boring white dudes. And frankly, the joke basically is that RoboCop is the most boring white guy of all time. He's such a boring white guy.
Yeah.
He almost has no personality.
Yeah, he's like our
hysterical.
parents. It's like he's not a bad person. He's just been trained to do a thing. But then after learning that there's another, like, oops, I got the wrong message. I was lied to my whole life. He switches sides and learns how to be a better RoboCop. He wants to be the best RoboCop he can be.
And isn't that something we all can take from and bring into our own lives,
Yeah, especially if we get our little jetpack. The
jetpack is great. Long story short, there's a big showdown at OCP. He beats the Otomo robots. They self-destruct. They blow up the whole fucking building. It's sick. Paul McDaggett dies in the jetpack flame. I would say the jetpack effects are not jaw-dropping, but I found them charming and fun to watch.
They're very fun.
Just the idea of like, this is like some sequel shit that we're dying for. Let's make RoboCop fucking fly, motherfucker.
Yeah.
It's our whole thing about like, why not go to space with all of these? Why not go to space?
This is the closest I think we're ever going to get somehow, which is really sad.
Well, if we ever do Friday the 13th, we will go to space with Jason. But
we actually might.
Yes.
We need to talk about our Halloween plans because, as I think listeners probably figured out, Saw was supposed to be our 2 months leading up to Halloween, and we can't do it anymore because the new Saw has been delayed till next year. So we do have 9 weeks to kill, and aren't there 9 Friday the 13th movies?
There's probably more. I don't even remember. We'll take care of that later. But
I know.
So
look,
we got to keep this like a tight hour tonight because I got something to do next. So let's get towards the end of the show here.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to bring up the Rotten Tomatoes score for 1 minute before we move on to
yes, because we're tracking this long running trend of sequels really getting lambasted for reasons that I think are more about cultural exhaustion than the actual movie.
Yeah, but this received a 3% on Rotten Tomatoes, which I don't even know how that's really possible. It's like there aren't even 100. It's like what, a half a person gave this a positive. I don't really understand the metrics of Rotten Tomatoes, but it's like maybe the lowest. I don't think I've ever seen a movie that has received this low of a score when it shouldn't. Again, this doesn't deserve to get a 3. I don't even understand what that means.
Yeah, I mean, fuck them. They're just wrong. I think we've learned this lesson a few times in this series. Just like, critics at Roger Ebert's review, like, oh, just another model off the line and from Detroit, shit like that.
Right.
Like, fuck you, man.
And that was like,
this is so different from the first one and so different from the second one.
Yes.
There's choices being made. I don't know. I don't even want to give the critics too much time. They just didn't engage with it. And like,
no,
what else can you say?
I think what I want to say is that if you look at Letterboxd, which is all people, like it definitely, like it got sort of taken over now by some like IndieWires and other things do have their critics reviewing on Letterboxd. But for the most part, it's a user-rated system. And even they were told that, like, this is a bad movie. So who knows if people even see these things? They just like, oh, this is the third in a RoboCop series. Obviously, it's going to be trash. I'm just going to give it my 1 star and go do something else with my life. It's really sad. Like, this is something that I think is worth watching. And it's very fun, especially if you're a fan of robot cops. If you're a fan of RobotCops, this is a good movie.
I just did the most narcissistic thing I've done in a minute, where I read my own review, not realizing it was my review, and I was like, hell yeah, fuck yeah, this guy gets it.
He's fucking genius. But yeah, this is another example of fucking idiots telling you what to think, and we're also idiots telling you, well, I don't know if we're telling you what to think, but we're just saying we really had a great time. Do we even say that he has a fucking new gun hand that's really cool?
He's got a cool new gun hand. Look, we loved this movie. It was great. Let me ask you the question, Charles. Are you asking when will it end? Because last episode I was fucking done.
It is a hard question because I don't know. I think this movie worked for me very specifically. I mean, it definitely get a little bit higher rating and respect because of what we're living through right now, but also it did this thing very well, but I don't know that I want more of it. I think that the first one is brilliant satire, and it's like really digs into the dark underbelly of America. And this is a very overt, superficial, optimistic, just like, wow, look at this. And that's not very interesting. It's very fun, but I don't think I want either. Two went overt pro-fascist. This went overt pro-Cecil. Pro-Cecil. This is a very pro-Cecil movie.
Fans of Cecil will love this.
It's very like, they both do things very overtly. And this, just because this one's more palatable and fun and has a nice message, I don't think it really deserves to just keep going like this. The world itself is just like a one-trick pony. It's like, we have the corporation, we have the police, we have RobotCop. I don't really think there's much more you can do with it other than what the first one did. So yeah, I'm continuing to say, just like, when will this end? I don't need more of this in my life.
I'm actually going to echo you on this. As much as I enjoyed this, I hear you. We finally saw OCP get destroyed in the most fairy tale-like
that's true.
Outing of the entire series. That's a nice sense of completion. It's hard to imagine them milking more out of this. I mean, obviously, the original screenwriter's intended version of him waking up deep in the future, that sounds fucking cool. I'm all on board for, unless it's a dramatic step out of this experience, this trilogy has to end, I think, with this.
Right.
So I'll say when will it end at this point, but with the caveat that if someone showed up with the time travel / go to space aspect, then I'm back on board.
I was going to say,
like,
Josh,
go crazy with this.
I think we just need to take that out. Like, we can't have that, because obviously we would never ask when will it end if they were going to bring it to space.
Yes.
So I think we always have to be asked, like, we're asking the question, are we asking when will it end knowing that it's never going to go to space? Because we are always waiting for them to go to space, and I will always not ask when will it end, just on the chance that they might take it there.
For the record, on Letterboxd, RoboCop 2 is almost a full point score above RoboCop 3, RoboCop 2 rather, and that is fucking appalling.
Yeah, people are
I talk to
idiots.
people. It's like with Blade 2, which is very similar to RoboCop 2. Just like Blade 3 is sort of like a kiddie food version of Blade, and Blade 2 is this blown out, very unlikable, bright, irritating movie. Anyways, people have these obsessions. I talk to people like, oh, I remember RoboCop 2 rules. I'm like, no, it sucks.
Yeah.
You saw it when you were a kid. It's not good.
Yeah. Just, like, this is a movie I think that would be very similar. Like, your understanding of RoboCop 3 as a child would probably be very similar to your understanding as RoboCop 3 as an adult. Like, it's not that complicated. It's very easy. It's kid-friendly. But yeah, if you watched RoboCop 2 as a kid, don't fucking watch it again. It's fucking garbage. But this, like, yeah, this is good. I give it a Robo thumb up.
That's beautiful. This is actually just an interesting historical point. This is the first movie ever to use digital morphing in more than one scene.
Whoa. Wait, when was the other scene?
I think probably some of the Otomo face stuff.
Oh, yeah, probably. Yeah.
But yeah, this was a bomb. People hated it. It lost at least $12 million. Society is sometimes just full of disappointment.
Hey, maybe we deserve the RoboCop 2. If we're not going to laud the RoboCop 3, maybe we should just all live in RoboCop 2.
That's really beautiful.
I would like to choose my MVP because I have one.
Okay.
And I'm very excited to say her name as Dr. Lazarus. She is my pick for MVP.
Yeah, she's great. She's fucking awesome. She's spunky and cool and quick and clever, and I love that she gave up her job at the corporation to go fight with the rebels. Cool-ass person. I'm giving mine to Bertha. she's the kind of rebel leader that I wish I could rally behind to have a scrappy gang of outcasts fighting against a corporate overlord. That'd be so sick. I found her exciting and charismatic and interesting, and I thought she was a great leader. And I wish we had more leaders like Bertha.
I think Lazarus, to me, like, really gained my respect when she didn't, like, and there's no even, like, a scene of her being like, I'm going to make sure to not clear his memory. It just, like, sort of cuts, and you almost think that it happens, but, like, she just does this thing to, not for any particular reason other than that she doesn't want to steal the humanity away from RobotCop. And throughout the whole movie, she acts against sexism and, like, clear sexual assault, and she just, like, stands her ground, is a really great, like, she carried me through a lot of the movie in the same ways that all these characters are great. It was actually one of those movies where it was hard to choose one, but she really was, I think, pivotal to the heart of this movie.
Yeah, and I also like that RoboCop again enforces consent with a gun, which is awesome. I want to close the episode with what I think is quietly one of the best ideas for sequels ever presented in a sequel. When Leon is talking to the Sarge at the precinct, he goes, all right, if you got a RoboCop, you got an alien cop? Huh? You got Ghost Cop?
Yeah.
Then Sarge goes, Leon, I told you I don't got time for this. And Leon goes, you got a vampire cop? And I'm like, Leon, you got to work for Orion because you could have maybe made the best RoboCop 4 ever. And we'll never know what that was. Okay.
Unfortunately,
I have to go. I need to eat dinner.
Yeah, but we will know what the new RoboCop is going to be like because next week we'll be watching, I think it's just called RoboCop again, right?
It's a full remake. It's called RoboCop. I want to keep an eye on the director, who I've heard some shady things about.
Yeah.
And I will say I saw this movie in theaters and I didn't hate it. I don't think, while remaking RoboCop is patently ridiculous, it does not need to be remade. I will say that I don't remember hating this. And
Me too.
I'm interested to see what it feels like in 2020.
I agree. So that's where we're going to be. We're going to be in a new version of old Detroit.
Until next time, dead or alive, you're listening to When Will It End? I like from the movie.
Yeah, right. Got it.